The sun burned mercilessly over the African savanna as the Hawthorne family stepped out of their rented Jeep like they were walking onto a red carpet. Richard, with that attitude of someone who thinks he knows everything. Meredith, holding her phone as if it were a crown. Oliver and Emily trailing behind, bored, as if the whole of Africa were just another stop on their long list of expensive trips they loved to brag about. A park ranger walked toward them calmly. He was a man whose eyes carried the kind of experience only those who've seen the worst side of nature more than once possess. "I strongly recommend you go with a guide," he said, firm yet polite. Richard didn't wait even 2 seconds to answer. "I appreciate it, but we don't need one. We've traveled the world. We can handle ourselves." The ranger simply looked at him, not with anger, not with irritation, just that silent look of someone thinking, "You have no idea what you're walking into." But the Hawthorns didn't notice. They laughed, they brushed it off, climbed into the Jeep and sped off as if they were above any danger. At first, the savannah seemed eager to impress lions in the distance, sunbathing like calm kings watching over reckless subjects. Giraffes walked gracefully, and the sky looked painted in shades of orange and fire. Meredith filmed everything, narrating as if she were shooting a luxury vlog. But while she described their perfect adventure, Oliver frowned. "Dad, something smells burnt," he said, pulling his shirt over his nose. Richard rolled his eyes, annoyed as always when contradicted. "This car must be old. Let's stop for a minute." He turned off the engine. The Jeep shook, then jolted and died. And there, in the middle of the savannah, in the worst possible place, silence fell heavy. Not a peaceful silence, a warning. Emily gripped her mother's arm, timid, her voice barely there. "We should have come with the guide." Meredith didn't answer. Richard pretended he didn't hear. But that sentence, so simple and so true, slipped into the family like the first crack in glass about to shatter, because right then, their fate began to shift, and the savannah began to watch. While Richard tried to restart the Jeep for the 10th time, the savannah seemed to hold its breath. The wind stopped. Not a bird, not an insect. Nothing. It felt like the entire world knew something the Hawthorns still didn't. Oliver noticed first. He looked toward the tall grass, squinted, and went pale. "Dad, that is not a log." Richard was about to snap back as usual, but when he turned his head, the blood drained from his face. In the golden grass, something long, heavy, moving, too silent to be Wynn. Another shift, then another, until the massive shape revealed itself completely, a serpent, one that didn't look real, one that made any human instantly understand how small they truly were. It was as thick as the trunk of an ancient tree. Its scales glinted under the sun like hot metal, and it moved without hurry, because it didn't need to. It already knew the stopped Jeep was an easy prey. Meredith dropped her phone. Emily clutched the seat so hard her knuckles whitened. "Richard," she managed to say barely. "Do something." But he couldn't even blink. The snake made the first loop around the Jeep, then the second, tighter, and then it squeezed for real. The sound was horrifying, metal groaning, windows rattling, the roof caving in, as if the car were made of aluminum foil. Emily screamed. Oliver wrapped his arms around her, trying to shield her. Meredith cried, repeating Richard's name as if begging for a miracle, and Richard simply broke. Too late, he understood everything. The arrogance, the need to look in control, the habit of ignoring warnings, the blind trust in his own last name. There, inside a Jeep being crushed by a force he never imagined existed, Richard saw, for the first time, his own mistake staring back at him. "This is my fault," he whispered, barely audible. The snake squeezed again. The air grew thick. The windows cracked. Meredith screamed her children's names as if her voice alone could protect them. But then, in the distance, a sound, first faint, then clearer. Engines, voices, park sirens. Hope seeped into the collapsing Jeep like a breath of air. The Rangers surrounded the animal immediately. Gunshots echoed across the horizon. The snake loosened its grip for a moment, but it didn't flee. This wasn't any ordinary creature. It was primal power, deafened by instinct. And then, one ranger got too close. The serpent struck with impossible speed, a fast, brutal blow that ripped a scream from the hawthorns. Richard, seeing it, understood instantly. That man was risking his life for them, for people who had ignored every rule. And that realization, that guilt, cut through him like a blade. The wounded ranger collapsed while the others tried to hold the serpent back with thunderous shots. Inside the mangled jeep, the hawthorns trembled, not just from fear, but from the dawning knowledge that this fight shouldn't even be happening. Richard looked at his children, their quick breaths, their red, terrified eyes. "I'm sorry," he said, voice breaking. "This is all my fault." Oliver and Emily looked at him differently this time. For the first time, they saw their father without the armor of pride he had worn his whole life. They saw the real man, fragile, regretful human. The serpent lifted part of its body, coiling for another attack. The rangers yelled instructions, trying to keep their distance. And in the chaos, Richard made a decision no one expected. He pushed the crushed door with all his strength. The metal groaned and gave way. "Richard, no!" Meredith screamed, trying to pull him back. But he was already outside. Facing the creature that could kill him in seconds, Richard didn't run. Instead, he spread his arms, shouted, clapped, did everything he could to draw its attention. "Here, over here!" he roared, louder than the gunfire. And it worked. The serpent turned its head toward him. Its dark, hollow eyes locked onto his, and the world fell silent for a second that felt eternal. Then the animal lunged, a colossal movement, dragging dust and earth with it. The rangers seized the moment. They fired everything they had. The shots hit almost at the same instant the serpent hit Richard. He fell. The snake dropped shortly after dust rose. Noise faded. The wind returned, soft, as if the savannah exhaled again. The rangers ran to the jeep, pulling Meredith and the children out. Emily sobbed without breath. Oliver tried to stay strong, but his face said everything. When they found Richard, he was lying on his side, motionless, his body marked by a battle he never imagined he would face. Oliver dropped to his knees and hugged his father, crying in a way that tore through everyone around. Meredith collapsed on the ground, stripped of pride, stripped of everything, left only with pain. The rescue team leader took a deep breath, removed his hat, and said, without irony, without anger, just with the raw truth nature often teaches too late, "If you had followed the rules, none of this would have happened." The words pierced the family like arrows. It wasn't judgment, it was fact. It was the price they paid for thinking they were above everything. Hours later, as the rangers collected equipment and the animal bodies for analysis, something strange happened. One ranger shouted, "Hey, come see this! Quick!" The snake, lying still for a long time, moved, slowly, almost imperceptibly, but it moved. One of its eyes opened, reflecting the setting sun. It wasn't fully alive, but it wasn't fully dead either. A shiver ran through everyone nearby. It was as if the savannah gave one final reminder. Nature doesn't give the same warning twice, and when it strikes to the very end.